Hey there guys, in today's video I am going to be showing you how I turn branches into blocks for my parrots. Now these are going to be blocks that can be used as foot toys. They're going to be blocks that I can use to string on stainless steel skewers or chain to give my birds something that they can interact with. And the good thing is I'm going to be showing you how I prepare these blocks and dry them out so they have staying power. So if that's something you guys are interested in seeing, make sure to stick around, because that's going to be coming up right after this. Hey there guys, this is Jack over at Hi Red Bird, where I am tirelessly working to find new ways to make the keeping of exotic animals and pets more exciting, more affordable, and ultimately more enjoyable. Now, one of the things that I like giving my birds are things that they can destroy, because for some birds you can see a ton of interaction with that. Now, blocks can be a little bit pricey. If you wanted to get a brand new toy made out of blocks, that's going to be fairly expensive. If you wanted just the replacement blocks, especially if you have a large collection of bigger birds, that can still be pretty expensive, but there is a pretty easy solution. Using natural branches from bird-safe trees, I can cut blocks and I can then prep them and get them ready to refill any toys that I have. Now, this is going to be great for people with big birds, people with a lot of birds, because you can get a lot of blocks for not much expense. But one thing I do want to point out, I am not going to be using, and I don't recommend you use, branches that have fallen down on their own. I definitely recommend trimming those branches. The reason for that, if a branch has fallen on its own, it's probably for a reason. It could be that that branch is starting to rot on the inside. It could be that there is some sort of bacterial or viral issue with that tree. It could mean there is a ton of insect pests or other things that you probably don't want your bird to interact with. So I'm definitely going to recommend cutting down branches or even cutting down a whole small tree just to use this. But the process is pretty straightforward. So without further ado, let's jump into how I'm going to put this together. All right, now turning branches into blocks for your parrot is going to be reasonably straightforward. There's just a few accommodations that you want to make. Now, these are going to be the same accommodations that you would want to make if you were using items from outside as food or browse items for your parrot. First and foremost, you want to make sure that the plants you are using are non-toxic. If you're not sure if a plant is non-toxic, or if you're not sure even what type of plant it is, you can go ahead and reach out to your local garden center or to a local university to help identify a plant and know its toxicity. You always want to make sure that you're checking, because different plants might be toxic on their bark but not their leaves, or on their leaves but not their fruit. So check to know what parts of the plant would be toxic as well. You also want to make sure that it hasn't been treated with anything like herbicides or pesticides that could leave a lingering residue on the branches that could be potentially hazardous. Obviously, the goal here is to create natural items that are healthy and safe for your bird to get. Now, what I am doing here is going through and removing some small epiphytic plants. On this branch, there were some small pieces of Spanish moss, which is non-toxic, but it's still going to be something that I want to remove. You definitely want to make sure that you are checking the outside of your branches, because there are some things that are not quite as harmless. Mistletoe is common in a lot of parts of the country. It is a toxic epiphytic parasitic plant, so it will be growing into your plant and it would definitely need to be removed. Now, once you have a branch that is cut to a manageable size, I just use a sawzall or a chainsaw to cut the tree down to manageable pieces. I go ahead and make a plan for how I'm going to be cutting these pieces It makes it easier if you just think about where you're going to be making your cuts, how many blocks you're planning on getting. Now, one thing I'm going to be doing, you'll notice that I have given myself a handle when I trimmed up this tree. Now, the part of that branch where that handle isn't going to be usable for blocks, but it gives me a really nice, really safe way to handle and manage this branch so that I can cut it. Safety needs to be at the forefront of what you are doing. So you guys are going to want to make sure that you have eye protection. You want to avoid splinters or anything else flying into your eyes. You also want to make sure that you have ear protection. So I have my noise canceling headphones, which had to be good enough in this instance because I could not find my good ear protection, but it's definitely better than nothing. Now you will notice there are going to be some pieces that I just wasn't happy with. The blocks ended up too big. I'm going to go ahead and set those to the side. I'm not going to get every single last piece of this wood as a block, but I'm definitely going to get a lot more than what I had before. And the goal here is to create natural blocks that my birds can interact with. That doesn't mean every single piece of this wood has to be turned into a block. Now, once I have my blocks ready, here I've got an assortment of elm and sycamore pieces. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load them into a food dehydrator. Now, the important part of drying out your wood is to get as much moisture out of it as possible so that these blocks don't mildew and don't foster bacterial growth. I'm using a food dehydrator, but I know a lot of people will use their oven. The goal here is just to go low and slow. You should not feel like you are cooking your wood. You should at no point smell anything that remotely resembles burning. For these pieces on my food dehydrator, I'm going to be honest, to me, it kind of smelled a little bit like popcorn, like a very faint, low odor of popcorn, but there was never smoke. The goal here is to go as low as possible. If you go too high, obviously there's the risk that your wood could burn, it could catch fire, but it could also potentially crack if that water that's inside the wood is getting heated too fast. It's going to need somewhere to escape to, so it can crack the wood as that is happening. So just go on a low temperature and go for a pretty long period of time. The exact temperature and the exact amount of time needed are going to depend on a variety of factors. How thick you have cut your branches. Obviously, thinner branches will dry out faster. What type of wood it is. One thing I recommend is keeping a few pieces to the side and not drying them out, because you will notice an obvious color difference between the wood that is dried out and the wood that isn't dried out. So if you keep a few pieces to the side, you'll be able to make that comparison pretty easily, and that'll just help you to ensure that your pieces are well dried out. Now, obviously, having these little blocks is going to be nice, but the good thing about this is that you can pre-drill them and have them ready to go so that you can put them on a stainless steel skewer so that you can use them to replace parts on chain that your bird has chewed through. Now, I'm going to go ahead and use a drill to do this. I will tell you guys right now, a drill press is going to be the easiest way to do this, the fastest way to do this. But I understand that it is, a little bit of specialty equipment that not everyone is going to have access to. Everyone will have access to a drill. Now, if you are drilling at your dining room table or a table that you like, please, please, please use some sort of guard under that. Here you can see I have a old piece of 2x6. I'm just using that because if I go too far and drill into that old 2x6, that's going to be a lot better than if I drill into my dining room table. You'll also notice that I then backtrack through the hole. That's going to be a really good way to clear out any of those splinters, any of that small bit of sawdust that is then caught in that wood block. And then it should be good to go. So it really is pretty simple and straightforward. All right, guys, and as you can see, that is pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Again, the lumber that I was using there, or rather the branches that I was using there, are sycamore and elm. I do have a couple of different varieties around me planted that I can utilize for parrot enrichment. Things like mulberry, hackberry, and willow are all going to be some of my favorites. But I would love to hear from you guys. Where you live, what is your favorite type of branch to use for perches or wooden blocks like this? If you have a favorite type of branch, go ahead, put that down in the comment section down below. I certainly hope this tutorial was instructive and helpful for you guys, and I hope that I see you guys next time. I do need to say thank you to my Patreon patrons for helping to make these videos possible. You can find out more by visiting Hi Redbird on Patreon or clicking the link in the description section down below if you would like more information. Thanks!